Well, hi, I'm Flo, or Ideal Flo, on social media, from soundscurrent.com. And I just want to, have the pleasure of sitting with you today.
Thank you, Miss Ideal Flo.
Yes, yes. Now, our first question is, how are you doing, love?
I'm doing good. Excited, doing this music again. So yeah. I'm pretty excited about that. And, it's just refreshing to get back in the mic, get back on the mic and just start recording again. So I feel really good about that.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, man, it's been so long, like 25 years since you recorded anything. And, I guess the question for me is, why now?
I mean, I own a label. Okay. So I've always had the resources to do it. But I guess it just comes down to, as a writer, I wasn't inspired for a lot of years. When I stopped doing it back in the mid-90s, I just didn't have the inspiration to write. And so I did a song with my brother, Amwan.
Okay.
And he had me feature on one of his songs. And just after it, I felt really good. The song came out good, and I was excited about it. So I just got inspired to do an album. I had never done an album before.
Really?
Even when I was on tour back in the days, I only did singles. So this was my first opportunity to actually put out an album. So I said, I want to do it. So it's a personal thing.
Here we are.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, let's start from the beginning. How did you begin your journey in hip-hop?
Well, late 70s.
Okay.
Telling my age.
I won't tell.
Yeah, I listened to a song Curtis Blow. I did These Are the Breaks.
Okay.
Late 70s, 78, 79, somewhere in there. And I just kind of fell in love with the poetry side of it, the beat. And it was just a new thing. I come from where at the time I was living in Ohio, so, we were always surrounded with the funk music and all of that. But this is just something that I felt I could do because I can't sing or if anything. My parents and I, we used to sit down on every Friday night. My father would play the guitar, and we used to do a little songwriting thing,
Okay.
And just when the rap music first came out, when I first heard that song, I was just really inspired by that. And then, of course, Sugar Hill Gang was another one. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I can see how that transpired.
Yeah.
Okay. So you say you lived in Ohio when you first heard Curtis Blow.
Right.
And that was like late 70s.
Right.
How did... And I know Ohio, originated, the funk originated, had an origin from there. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how did that impact you at all?
Well, we used to play football out in the street, and there was an empty lot down the street, and I don't know, I'm sure people are familiar with Roger Troutman, Zap Band.
Okay.
And anyway, their studio was there, and they had speakers outside of the studio, so when we played football, we would listen to the music all day long,
Okay.
So yeah, it was Ohio was a great place to grow up musically because there were so many Ohio players and the OJs and, so many great groups and bands, from there. And then with my father, like I said, he was a musician as well, played guitar and it was just a really cool time. It was almost like a perfect storm, for me to be introduced to hip hop and, but yeah, Ohio.
Hey, Old Town. The other Old Town. So since hip hop was new, to start now, what is this, How did your parents react to you being involved in it? Did they get mad or?
Well, in the beginning, it wasn't that big of a deal to them because it wasn't anything that they thought I necessarily took serious. So it wasn't that big of a deal. Once I did get a little older and I started actually doing it all the time, and that's all they heard. Mm-hmm. My mother is simple. She's always supportive of whatever, super supportive. It didn't matter what I do. I tell her I'm going to fly to the moon. Okay, baby, be careful, But, and I tell this story all the time, and me and my father has talked about it. He didn't personally care for it too much, and I remember one time when I was a little bit older, he actually took my boombox and broke it. He was mad. He said, this music's never going to go anywhere. It's a fad, a phase and whatnot. But it actually turned into more motivation for me, and we laugh about it now. And he actually apologized to me. He didn't realize at the time how big hip hop was going to be, and he admitted that he was wrong. You know, but it was also, you know, motivation for me not to quit and to keep doing it because I knew at an early age that's what I was going to do.
Okay.
You know, so.
Another sidebar. Did he buy you a new boombox?
No, not at all. No, not at all.
Oh, that's funny.
But I love him for what he did. You know, I tell that story, and some people might look at it as a negative, and at the time I did too. Mm-hmm. But you know, as a parent, you just want the best for your kids.
You do.
You know, and I look back on that now as, you know, yeah, I took it as motivation, but he only wanted what was best for me. You know, and he didn't want me to just follow some pipe dream, and I think a little bit might have to do with, you know, him being a musician at one time. You know, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, you know, but he wasn't having it, that's for sure.
Hey, man. Well, look at you now.
Yeah.
So you guys moved around a lot?
Yeah, we did. I actually went to...
How did that affect your music at all?
Well, it affected music. It's crazy. I went to 36 different schools.
What?
Between the first grade and the 12th grade, and we moved around a lot. I think 36. It might not be that many, but it seemed like it. The cool thing is being introduced to hip hop in the late 70s. I was there in the beginning. Okay. The natural progression of hip hop started in New York. Everyone knows this, but New York, West Coast, you know, and then eventually down south. Well, I had the opportunity to be introduced to it during the East Coast. And then when I was 12, we moved to California.
Oh.
So that impacted my music and my writing because it was a whole completely different vibe, you know. Mm-hmm. Everywhere else in the country, you had to sound like you were from New York, you know. There was no such thing as the Southern rap at that point, you know. So when I moved out to California, you know, my influences just were different, you know, Too Short. And, he was an underground... you know, artists at the time, even before NWA came out. So, you know, I was introduced to gangster rap, you know. So my whole thing flipped, but it was cool because moving between, you know, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. You know, Ohio was just a small stint, but moving back and forth from Louisville to California and back, I was able to really follow the progression of hip hop and see it unfold, you know. I was on the east side, the East Coast side, in the beginning, the West Coast side during its blow up. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, back in the South when it started to do its thing.
Sizzle.
So, yeah. So.
I could imagine, you know, seeing every end of the spectrum, in a sense.
Right,
you know, through the music. That's awesome. So, like, you know, you already said you went, you know, you lived in the West Coast. Like, who were your influences when you did live in the West Coast?
West Coast?
Oh, yeah.
Ice-T, Too Short.
Okay.
You know, NWA once they came out, you know. I actually knew of Dr. Dre before he was famous. I didn't know him, but, you know, anyone that knows the old school hip-hop knows he was with World Class Wrecking Crew before he got into the gangster rap. So I was influenced with that music as well. Breakdancing was real big. But I would say West Coast, definitely Too Short. Ice Cube, you know, just that gangster rap, you know. I don't know, it was just something about it that felt like it was more comfortable for me.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying, as a writer, you know. But it did, you know, make my art a little bit more negative in terms of what I talked about. But, you know, it was cool.
As long as it's real, it's right.
Yeah, no, I mean,
it is what it is. Yep. So it seems like there's a little political side to your music. Like, where does that come from?
That's the weird thing, and I think it has to do with moving back and forth. When I moved back to Louisville, Kentucky, and doing music, you know, I opened up for a lot of people, and I was on, you know, tour with a few groups, but I used to perform a couple of times with a group called X-Clan. I don't know if people remember them, but this was during the time where everyone was wearing the Malcolm X patches and the Malcolm X hats.
Oh, yeah.
In the 90s, you know, that was a big thing. And a part of me became political. I stopped against the rap because I moved from California, and then I turned into this Afrocentric guy, you know. I had the dashiki and the dreadlocks and the whole thing, you know.
Oh, you had dreadlocks?
I did at one time. That's
I was going to say, let me see them now.
Yeah, once I cut my dreadlocks out, my hair never really grew back the right way. But that's where it came from. You know, I think that as a writer, you have to draw from your experiences. Me and my engineer, Mr. B, we talk about it all the time. As a writer, it's important to experience certain things, and then you can write about that.
Right.
So I was just in a point in my life where I was just living a little bit more positive.
Okay.
I stopped eating pork for like 2 weeks.
How was that?
It was hurtful.
Horrible. No bacon?
I love pork.
No bacon.
Yeah, so I quickly got out of that mode. But yeah, I mean, everyone during that time in the 90s, everyone was kind of a little bit more conscious, you know. You know, Public Enemy was hitting real hard, X-Clan, you know, KRS-One, you know, those guys. So, you know, it was just a phase that I went through. You know, I'm still positive. I still want to preach positive things.
Right.
And I think now as a writer, I still have that gangster side to it. I write about that. And I guess at my age, the cool thing about being older as an artist is that I have so many different experiences in my life. I have a lot to feed from, you know, to write about.
Things to talk about, you know.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've noticed, like, about, I've always said that for me, like, when people are younger, it's like, what have you been through?
Yeah. Right.
You know, so as you're a little older, I feel like you have a lot more content to give.
You do. I mean, you do. I've been through a lot. You know, I'm a grandfather. You know, my son's a father.
Congratulations.
Thank you. You know, I've lived everywhere. You know, like I said, I went to a lot of different schools and been to the military. You know, newly married. I have stepchildren now. I just, you know, a lot of different things that you can feed from as a writer, and just it makes it easy. Makes it easy to write.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
So, like, in your intro of your album,
Right.
you know, you talked about the South not being a force.
Right.
You know, when you started out. So how do you feel it is compared back then to now?
Well, I mean, it's a complete flip-flop, you know.
Yeah.
When I lived in Louisville in Kentucky, that's the South, you know. But everyone there sounds like they were from New York. And you would get booed off the stage if you sound country. You know, it just wasn't popular. And it wasn't until Outkast and, you know, some of those groups down there start to blow up where the South start to become dominant. I remember in the mid 80s where a lot of, you know, the black folks where I'm from, everyone migrated to Atlanta. They migrated there because of the jobs.
Okay.
There would be 20 pages of jobs. And so a lot of the black folks went to Atlanta. And this is in the mid 80s. You think about that, that's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But when the music started to get popular, those people had kids. Now you're looking at a second, even a third generation of people, you know, that all migrated to Atlanta.
Right.
You know, Atlanta became a huge force in the music industry. But I remember when Atlanta wasn't Atlanta like it is now, you know, and just I remember my cousins and family members all moving down to Atlanta, migrating. 'Cause that's where all the good jobs were at, Coca-Cola and different things.
Yeah.
You know, different things like that. So it was just a matter of time. I think once a couple of acts made it, like an Outkast, once they became so dominant, it was now cool to just be yourself.
Right.
And once that happened, you know, the South just exploded, you know. And I think they took a little bit from both. I think the things that Southern artists rap about, they took a big part of the West Coast gangsta rap influence.
Right.
To where,
implement it.
And they implemented it with just real hard body beats. And then, of course, Miami was always popular for the booty bass music, you know.
Come on now.
So, you know, and I think that evolved into the production that you hear now in the South. So it's a cool thing. Like I say, it's really cool being there from the beginning because I was able to see it all unfold, you know. And, but yeah, it's a completely 360. I mean, now the South is probably the biggest,
yeah.
you know, when it comes to hip hop, you know.
True. Yeah. It's funny how things change.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, like, what was some of the highlights you encountered when you were at, like, the height of your career? It was, like, the best
highlights?
Moments. Yeah. Some of the best moments.
I performed with a lot of big artists. Tupac, Too Short. You know, like I said, that was one of my original influences, and to have an opportunity to perform with him was great. You know, Houdini, Run DMC,
oh, wow.
Naughty by Nature. Back in my day, whoever was the best in the city was the one that opened up for the concerts when it came. It's not like it is now where you pay to be on the show.
Mm.
If you were the hottest in the city, the promoter put you on, period. That's how it was.
Wow.
But one good story. Dayton, Ohio, I think 1991 or 92. We were doing a show with Tupac, MC Breed, Too Short, and a group called, I think it's DRS. They had a popular song called This Is For My Homies. I think they had one song, but yeah, one hit wonder. But anything, the cool thing about it is the promoter got the hotel rooms all on one floor.
Nice.
So all of us were there, so we were going to sound check. And, you know, we came out of our hotel room, and then right across at the same time, Too Short came out of his, you know, hotel room. And I just stood there like starstruck, you know. Yeah, it was really cool. Got an opportunity to meet him. His crew bought all the hamburgers down at the kitchen down in the hotel, and we had to spend more money on food, which we didn't have because tour life is broke life, really, back in those days. I had an opportunity to perform with Tupac standing on the side of the stage, just bobbing his head, you know, into our music. And that was a highlight for me, to see someone of that caliber enjoy my music.
Acknowledge you.
And just to even acknowledge it, I think his manager at the time was named Manny or something. This was a long time ago, but you know, we had an opportunity to speak with him and chop it up. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about that night is I had backstage view of his concert. And when Tupac hit the stage, it was like Jesus walking out. I mean, he just, you know, he had this aura about him, you know. And I'm not saying anything everyone in the world doesn't already know, but the energy, you know, that he brought to it, you know, it's like he completely dictated everybody in that place, you know, in terms of their emotions and their energy. And that night was probably the best night ever for me.
That's awesome.
Being in music, yeah, it's really cool. Cool to talk about.
Well, I mean, personally, if you don't like Tupac, I can't hang with you. So.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be crazy not to be a fan.
It's like that's an amazing story because, you know, not a lot of people can say, you know, I worked with or performed with Tupac, you know. So
yeah, very fortunate, you know. There was a group too. Another highlight. I don't know. It was just kind of cool, I guess, because, you know, we were pretty big in our city, in Louisville. And we got to the point where it was us and another group. And I have to give props to this. And I also want to say rest in peace to DJ Bam. DJ Bam was a DJ in a group called Underground Mafia. Okay. They were our label mates, Mafia Records in Louisville. And they had a hit song, Gangsta Walk. And it you know, it got them actually signed to a bigger situation. But it was a complete hit, right? Okay. And so anyway, it was us and Underground Mafia. We were opening up, and there was a group called UMCs. And the older hip-hop heads will probably remember, they had a hit song called Blue Cheese at the time. And I remember we had our dressing room, and we was going to our dressing room, and these guys thought that it was their dressing room, and since they were from New York and all of this, you know, they were going to hard body take over our dressing room. Mm-hmm. And we usually rode about 30 or 40, you know, deep. Oh, wow. You know, we had a pretty big network of people. And, you know, we showed them whose city it was. Nothing physical, but, you know, we showed them whose city it was, and they had to go find another dressing room. I thought that was pretty cool, because you weren't going to just come to our city and dictate how we did things, you know. Mm-hmm. And they ended up getting booed off the stage, so it was kind of funny. So, hey, karma's a bitch.
Ain't it? Now, big question. Why did you stop? After all this success, you know, you're doing all these things, you're moving forward, you're progressing. Why did you stop?
Stop doing music?
Yeah, why did you stop?
I mean, simple. I had a lot of big things happen, but I didn't make it, you know. Mm-hmm. I think that if I were never to do music again, I could look back and be satisfied for what I did. But I never really made it. But there was a time where the music just wasn't paying the bills. You know, I had my son in '91. Okay. I had the opportunity to get into corporate America and start running restaurants. I started doing restaurant work as a waiter so I could have the free time to do my shows. But, you know, as time moved on, I actually became pretty good at it. I went on the road opening up restaurants, and I became a general manager, and I just had to make a decision, you know.
Family.
I got not legal custody of my son when he was 9. Me and his mom, got along very well. She allowed him to move with me. And I just made a decision what was more important at the time, and that was to raise my son. And I don't regret it one bit. Once he was old enough, I think around 16 or 17 or so, that's when I started my label. He was old enough now. I said, I want to get back into music, but I wasn't really inspired to be an artist. I just wanted to really fulfill that empty space.
Right.
And then take all of the experiences that I had and share them with other artists, young artists,
Exactly.
And so at that point in time, I think in '08 is when I started the label and kind of got back into music.
Okay. So that was kind of your way back in.
It was. I mean, it's fulfilling.
Oh,
I
sure.
think that now that I'm doing this album, it was fulfilling owning the label, but this really fills me.
Good.
Doing the music again, actually, myself. So I'm pretty excited about that. But, but I stopped. I mean, we were at a time where, the shows started to slow down a little bit. I wasn't making as much money, and I never really had management and labels. We were always indie,
Okay. So.
We always sold our own stuff and out of the trunk and things like that. So the opportunity came up with the job and I took it, and then I moved around a lot from that. So
Okay.
but that's why I stopped.
Hey man, family, it makes sense.
Most definitely.
Bills don't come.
You gotta, the bills come.
Hey.
That's right. I just read a quote today on Facebook.
What is that?
It said, make more money. What did he say? Make more money than the bill collector's asking for. And if you ain't doing that, then you're doing something wrong. You know what I'm saying? It was something like that. But I wasn't making as much money as the bill collector needed.
With the music.
Right.
So you had to do what you had to do.
Yeah, man. I don't regret it at all, man. I have a wonderful son. So.
Well, the beauty of it is you took that sacrifice, you did what you had to do, and now you're back into it. Here making an album.
Yeah,
So,
we are. I'm excited about it. OG season.
it is. It's OG season.
Yeah.
Get into it.
Collectively, we, for the album itself, we're talking, the album itself is speaking about my journey and what we just talked about from the late 70s to now. So each song is strategically placed to describe a certain part of my life in hip-hop. The album's not for the young generation. They probably won't get into it as much just because of the content itself is dated to a degree. And I did that on purpose.
Okay.
I always say it's for the 35 and up, the tape deck boys.
Okay.
They're going to appreciate it more because they were there, and a lot of these things will connect. From the beginning of the album, it starts, from the late 70s, and then it kind of moves into the 80s and 90s into now. So it's really more of it's an album for me. We're not selling it. It's going to be free.
Okay.
And if other people like it, that's great. But I wrote the album, and I'm doing the album with a lot of help. O-Rap Studios, obviously, my brother, Stupid Genius, Mr. B, Cannon, then shooting.
Shout out to O-Raps.
Yeah.
And Cannon.
Yeah, a lot of people. Van Chisel featured on it. My son, Yuppie, featured on it. We were able to cover, there's a song about our grandmother. It's for her, and there's some songs on there just really explaining some emotion, and then there's a lot of fun in it. And, if no one gets it, I guess that's cool. But I think that, a lot of people that are 35 and up will enjoy the project.
Be able to relate to it.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's what's up. What do you want people to take away from your album after listening to it?
What do I want them to take away?
Your story.
I want them to take away a hip-hop lesson from my perspective, how I seen it. I want them to learn a little bit about the evolution of hip-hop. I want them to take away from the album a little bit more of respect to the game, for the game. I don't knock any of the new artists hustle out here, but I personally feel as an MC that you have to be more educated on the culture. I'm not mad about where we're at. I think that if hip hop were ever to be taken serious and be as big as it is now, it had to have branches off of that tree.
Correct.
So the mumble rap and the, all the different genres, I guess, of hip hop now is needed for it to be collectively as big as it is. So I respect it, but I don't like the fact that a lot of the younger MCs don't know the history, So I guess for me, I just want them to take away a little bit more of understanding of hip hop and everything that, we went through,
right?
To get it to this point, So.
Because it didn't just happen overnight.
Yeah, and I hope they respect good music. I think we all get caught up. The one thing, and I will say this, that I disagree with the old hip hop heads. They're so close-minded, some of them, or some closed-minded into back in my day. In this music, I can't stand it. But, it's a contradiction because our parents said the same thing about our music. Their parents said the same thing to them about rock and roll, And so who are we to judge what the kids are listening to? When hip-hop was new, we didn't have the first gen. We were the first generation.
We didn't have anything to reference it off of. So
at all. You didn't, and people didn't know how to accept it, and we didn't care. I remember going to the studio and having producers with the Jerry curls from the R&B days, trying to produce records for us, and I'm telling them, turn the bass all the way up.
Right.
Well, technically it doesn't make sense, or it sounds distorted. Turn that shit up, This is the sound, this is our sound, So for me, I just would and that's another reason why I did the album too, is if you're gonna complain about it, do something about it. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean you have to stop doing music. You can continue to do music. It doesn't matter how old you are. When we first started doing music, there was no first generation, like I said, so we didn't know how far we could take it and how old we can do it, how old we were until we had to stop doing it. But you look at your Jay-Z's and you look at your Eminems, and you look at these KRS-One, you look at Chuck D, and they're still doing it, and they're in their 50s, 40s, Now we know that as long as you can spit and as long as you make good music, you can keep doing it.
Gotta have the bars.
So
beats.
Gotta have bars. But it's tough, though. I think it's tough, and it's tough to sound. With the album, I didn't try to sound current. I just try to do me, And, I have an older sound, and that's okay. I'm old.
It's gotta be you.
I'll take it.
Hey.
Yeah, most definitely.
Can't try to sound like, whoever's hot out here.
I'm not, not at all. Not at all. Music is about, for a true artist, music is about yourself and what you do. It's not about trying to be like someone else. I had no expectations, so I'm not trying to hit a certain market. I'm not thinking numbers,
Right.
I'm just thinking passion and my love for music, and I'm making an album that I want to listen to.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot easier for me to complete the project.
That's what's up. So it's just ultimately self-expression.
Yeah, most definitely.
That's what's up. Okay. Well, how do you feel about the state of hip-hop today, and how is it different?
I love it. It's different because it's big. We were small, We were very simple back then, like rebels.
Right.
But I love where it's at. I think that it's taken over as the biggest genre of music, I feel, number-wise.
It is.
It's huge. It's everywhere. We used to fight just to be somewhere, You couldn't do hip-hop shows back when I was a kid. It was tough. We had to perform with punk rock bands because people wouldn't, venues wouldn't give you insurance to even do a hip-hop show. So to see that and to see where it's at now, where you have people selling out arenas,
they're like dying for
it's huge. So I love the state of music where it's at. There's some of it I don't like, but there was music back then I didn't like. There was hip hop. I wasn't exactly a Vanilla Ice fan. I respected his hustle, but and I think that's another thing that the old hip hop heads have to pay attention to. We had a lot of whack artists back then too. It's
not just now.
It's not just now. It's just more of them now, and with everyone being able to have Pro Tools and social media, you just see more of them.
That's because of the internet.
It's the internet, We didn't have internet. We didn't have, if you had 2,000 friends, you actually knew 2,000 people.
That's it.
It's not like it is now. Everything was a face-to-face marketing and hustle. But I love where it's at. I love the internet. I love being able to put a song out and have someone in Germany hear it within 5 minutes.
What a beautiful feeling.
You know, and that's huge. So yeah, I love where we're at now, and I'm excited to be a part of it, no matter how little small of a corner I'm in.
You know, that's funny you say that, because it's like, for me as a listener,
Right.
like, I was just cleaning up my house the other day and I found a bunch of CDs. And I was just like, oh my God. I remember this. I remember buying this, like, when I playing it until it couldn't play anymore.
Right.
You know? And, like, if you didn't know about the artist or hear about it on TV or through friends, like, you didn't know who it, like, you didn't hear about artists on the West Coast. I mean, I was born and raised in Florida.
You didn't.
You didn't, you know what I mean? If they didn't hand you the CD or it wasn't on TV, you didn't know who they were.
You didn't. And
So.
especially, you know, back in the days, a little bit further than that, even before the CD thing, people, West Coast music was blackballed everywhere else. It was New York dominated. So if you weren't in California, you really didn't get West Coast music a lot. You know, it leaked out, and you could buy it, you know, but it wasn't promoted, you know, like, you know, a lot of people didn't know who Too Short was. They didn't know who NWA was when they didn't know they didn't know until they made it big, you know. But now, you know, just a simple click of the button, you know, it's all.
Type it in.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful thing.
Thanks, Internet.
Yeah.
So, well, Love, I really enjoy speaking with you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
And,
it.
you know, your journey in hip hop is a story that everybody needs to hear, and I really thank you for sharing it with us today.
No problem.
I really can't wait to hear the full album.
September 17th.
Hey, you're going to be there.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, thank
And
you
I hope
for.
everybody receives it well, and, you know.
I hope so, and if not, I don't care. I'll be in there by
It's for you.
myself.
Yeah.
It's for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt.
I appreciate it, man.
No doubt. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.